let her know we're back on. Sharon, oh, Sharon is there. I don't know if everybody could like maybe think of somebody who was on. We're not giving up. They will not scare us. That's called Zoom. What is it called? Zoom booming or something. And we got boomed. So now we are protected. Daniel put in some protections for us. So welcome back. So I'm gonna just keep going. Daniel's the host now, so he's gonna mute and unmute us. And I think I'm gonna go right to the document that we put together that will take us through the 18 steps to freedom. We clearly need them now. We need them. And you know what? There are people out there who are who need them that we have to pray for because they're making trouble where really we need everybody to be on the same page. We need everybody to be doing good and reaching for good. So again, there is this document that I'm going to be working from that everybody can download, go to on our website. Joyce Sternick talked about something we did 30 years ago that she's still using. And this is kind of, it's not that far away from what we did then, because what it does is it documents the 18 steps that we have to take to freedom. And as I said before, you know, if you do, actually, the very end of the document says, if you can only do this, one of the rabbis in the Talmud said, it's good to take those 15 steps to freedom, but if you can only do one thing, make sure you talk about the Pesach, the sacrifice, the matzah, and I have some shmura matzah here. We'll talk about that. And the maror, the bitter herbs. So if you can't do anything else, or you don't think anybody's going to have the energy for it, at least do Pesach, matzah, and maror. But we're going to try to do a lot more. So welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. So what is the first step? The first 3 steps are really preparation. The night before Passover, which will be Tuesday night, we go through the house with, and you know that the custom is to take a feather and a spoon and a candle, right? And a candle, and the candle illuminates the chametz, the little crumbs that are left. And the idea is to take a feather and a spoon and to burn that little bit of chametz that you have left. My kids always loved that the night before Passover when they were little, because I would purposely leave like a box of cereal or something that would really burn well. And we'd take that chametz outside, we'd burn it, and we roasted marshmallows on the chametz. That might sound a little funny to roast marshmallows on the chametz, but remember that chametz, the stuff that, you know, is puffed up, is fine the rest of the year. So that it's not that it's a bad thing. It just doesn't belong during Passover. So we got to get rid of the chametz. And this year, I think we don't want to get rid of anything. And especially we can't really send our stuff from house to house because we don't want to contaminate anything. So I would say take your chametz, put it in a box, and, you know, keep it in a safe place. And, you know, if it's not possible, thank goodness we're liberal Jews, to keep Passover this year. You know, if it helps to be Sephardic and eat rice. Do you remember the conservative movement even passed a resolution a few years ago that said it was okay to eat rice and beans during Passover? So if they can do it, we certainly can do it. And I always said, because you have a rabbi who's Sephardic and always ate rice during Passover, that makes rice kosher for everybody. So we get rid of our chametz, and you know, you can even do that morning, because none of us are going to be cooking that much for big groups. Although I think that there are groups that are going to be Zooming and sharing food maybe that way. So we get rid of the chametz. That's the first thing. That's the first step in preparation and cleaning. You know, this has been an opportunity, I think, for people to clean their homes, because we're kind of stuck at home, many of us. And one of the first things we do at the Passover Seder is we always put out a little piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, and we ask people to write down what their spiritual chametz is. It's one thing to get rid of the physical chametz, but what is the spiritual stuff that you want to get rid of during Passover? What are the things, what are the actions, maybe the thoughts, the deeds, the things that you really want to shed, leave behind? Because when we leave that narrow place, we think about all of our ancestors who had to leave so many places for freedom, and they could only take with them, what did they take with them? At the Ellis Island Museum, there's a whole section on treasures from home, it's called, and it shows all of the things that people took when they took those long trips to and went through Ellis Island. And it's always that set of candlesticks that gets my attention. Somebody, of all the things that they would bring candlesticks. The second thing that we do in preparation is lighting the holiday candles, and the blessing is there. The lighting of candles this year, it's not Shabbat, but it'll be Wednesday night, and we still light candles to illuminate and to remember that we light candles, the light, the fire, as well as the light we give each other. And then we make a statement. We say we are ready. We are ready to begin. And the other thing that we do is we often read through the whole 15 steps. And so those are in the document as well. Jim has a Sephardic melody, and he'll be singing that for the first night program that we're going to put together. And we sing, or we just speak the 15 steps. Kadesh urachatz karpatz yachatz magid rachatza motzi matzah maror korech shulchan orech safun varech halel nirtzach. And so you can even see that it's even the names of the steps that we're going to take in the next few moments, they have a rhyme to them, they have a rhythm to them. And so they can be spoken or they can be sung. But the first step to freedom is the first blessing over the wine. There are 4 cups during the service, and they come from the 4 promises that were made in the book of Exodus. And I think those 4 cups this year take on even greater meaning. The first cup is for the promise, I will take you out. In other words, it reminds us, those of us who are stuck, you don't have to do this alone. Even though we are, even though we're separated from each other, we don't have to be stuck. And I see that that someone has a question. So go ahead and speak your question. I saw that Larry has a question. I don't know, Daniel, are you there that you can?
Unmute yourself. I have set it so that people can unmute themselves for now, at least.
So Larry, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. I don't see it anymore. Okay.
You're unmuted, Larry.
So Larry, do you? No, I think we might be being bombed again.
Yep.
Are we?
I'm going to assume so.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to keep going because I think those are not real people that are coming in. Okay. So that's the order of the Seder. And then, so about the 4 cups. The first cup is I take you out, because we know you can't get free just from yourself. You can't get free by yourself. Somebody has to help you get free, right? Moses was our great leader. We held each other. We didn't leave anybody behind. So who is it that needs to be your helper to get out of whatever stuck place you're in? That's the first cup. The second promise is I will save you. The second cup will be, you're out, but I took you out of slavery, but now you have to we can take the people out of slavery, but now we have to take the slavery out of the people. And so that's what it means to be saved. It means to be free of the old paradigms, to begin to see something new. I think that, you know, this country is going to have to embrace a whole new paradigm, you know, especially in public health when we're through this. The third one is I will redeem you. The third one is going to be a very important promise this year, because that's about coming back together when we can be holding each other once again. Redemption for the Jewish people, redemption in Passover is about being a people and being connected. And then the fourth one is perhaps the most important. And so that's why you have to come back to the Seder after dessert, because you don't get the fourth cup until after dessert, right after the meal. And so the fourth one is, and I will take you to be mine. And that's about faith. That's about what is it that it's going to take to restore our faith in human beings, in our systems, in God. What is it that's going to restore our faith that the good in us will win? So the first cup, you know, we raise the cup. We always like to use this cup for our first cup. And we say the blessing, and this one we get to drink. The second one is the first washing. You know, it's interesting that for Passover, we have 2 times that we wash, you know, it's a good thing for us. The first one, there's no blessing to. And I don't know if anybody else had this custom. I've never heard of this, although my father swears it was a Sephardic custom. For the first washing, it's just the leader that gets to wash his or her hands, and everybody else hides their eyes. And I still haven't figured why, but that first washing is about kind of washing away everything that you need to wash away to be free. The third step is eating a green, dipped in the green vegetables. I had some very sorry parsley left. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get parsley. So as I said, one of the things that we've started to put on our Seder table, our Seder plate, are the dandelions that the slaves ate, the American slaves ate in the fields when they were thirsty and hungry, because dandelions are healing. And so if we don't get parsley this year, we can use the dandelions, and we say a blessing, but we always dip them. I always have a little salt water to dip them in the salt water. We say the blessing first, and then we eat them. The fourth step is yachatz, where you break the middle matzah. Again, this is such a, you know, this is matzah shmura. This is matzah that shmura means that it was guarded from the time it was picked in the field. So, you know, not too many people are going to have access to matzah shmura this year, I know, but you can use, you know, and I hope everybody's been able to get a little matzah. But again, you know, we're going to make do this year. We're going to make do with whatever we have, whatever feels right. But the matzah shmura has been guarded since the wheat was picked in the field, because once water hits the wheat, you only have 18 minutes to turn it into bread, matzah, right? Otherwise, it's chametz. So matzah and chametz, the stuff we're allowed to have and the stuff we're not allowed to have, is the same substance. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of a moment that turns it from matzah that's permitted to the chametz that's not. And there's many, many teachings about that we have in our Haggadahs. So what we do with the matzahs, you have 3 matzah. You take the middle matzah, and for this you break the matzah. You take the larger one. You wrap it in a napkin, or sometimes people have these lovely little bags for Passover, and that becomes the afikomen that somebody will hide and the children will find at the end. Now, if you're having your Seder alone, you know, that might not be the thing to do, but if you have kids at home, this is, you know, one of the things that keeps kids occupied, and they love to do is to find the matzah. So then after the yachatz, you know, there are a couple of teachings here, but this is where we say, we hold it up, you know, we hold up the other piece and we say, this is the bread of affliction, right? That our mothers and fathers ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry, let them come and eat. And we can't really do that by opening our doors this year, but maybe it'll encourage us to find ways that many of us have done, I think, to feed other people. Um, all who are in need, let them come and celebrate Passover. Now we are here. Next year, may we be in a world of peace and freedom. Isn't that the truth? Now we are here. Next year, may we be in a world where everybody is healthy and has access to health care. Now we are slaves. Next year, may all humankind and all creation be free. And again, that is coming from the Haggadah. That is something that, you know, we say. And again, it's in the document that everybody can download. And then, you know, one of the things that we do is take a moment to mention the people and places in the world for whom freedom is not yet a reality, and promise that once they are free, we will be willing to help them rebuild their lives. You know, it's been so interesting to hear about the border, because the Mexican government is telling people, don't risk going to America. It's like the border has reversed. The people who are wanting to come to America for a better life, they're seeing that right now we're a third world country, and so people are avoiding us. And you know, it shows us that we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do, and and that's what the Haggadah is also about, because we were wanderers, right? We were wandering, and we needed help, and so now it's our obligation to remember and help others. And then, you know, the next step is probably the most important one, and that is the Magid. That's where we tell the story. And I think everybody knows some version of the story, but it always begins with the 4 questions. The 4 questions, you know, are really, you know, why do we eat matzah? Why do we eat bitter herbs and dip them twice? Why do we dip twice, and why do we recline? So those are really the basic questions, and then the answer is also in the song that everybody knows, Halayla Hazeh, Halayla Hazeh. You know, this night, we eat bitter herb, you know, we eat the matzah, right? Because we had no time to bake our bread. We eat the bitter herbs to remember the lives of the slave, that the slaves were bitter. And we dip twice because of the springtime, the rebirth of spring, and also that the slaves withstood the bitterness of slavery, and they could when it was with the hope of freedom. We recline because reclining was a sign of free people. And then we have the story about, and you know, I think probably this is the most important part of the Seder for many people, because you get to ask a lot of questions. This is the time to ask other questions. So if you're Zooming with other people, you have people at your table. I'm looking at my friend Steve Skranka, who always has a lot of great questions, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of great questions asked at his Seder table, as he probably always does. You know, it's important to take the time. You know, there's no rush with the Seder, right? There really shouldn't be. And this year, especially, we got nowhere to go. So let's enjoy the Seder and let it take its time, and by making it interesting and asking those questions at appropriate levels. For many, many years, Gabe Fleischer has sat, this will be the first year that he's not, since he's been a little kid, sitting at my table. And he one of the great things is he asks questions every year. You know, you can imagine the Gabe Fleischer questions, and I have a whole book of his questions, and he's coming up with questions for the congregation this year. Usually they're about famous Jews in American history. And so, you know, ask people who are joining you maybe by Zoom to come up with their own questions, and then challenge people to kind of figure out what the answers are. And that leads us into another piece of the Magid, the storytelling that is pretty famous, and that's the 4 different kinds of, it was used to be the 4 sons, now we say the 4 children. And there are always 4 different kinds of people at your Seder, right? There's the one who says, how does this relate to me? And that's the wise child, right? How is this meaningful for me? And the wicked child says, this has nothing to do with me. What does it mean for you? The curious child says, doesn't, asks the question without even being specific, not about meaning, but, what is this? And the 4th doesn't even know what to ask. And one of the great teachings, I think, about the 4 different kinds of children or questioners is that maybe it's 4 different generations. I often think about that first generation, like my grandparents who, came to this country from more traditional settings, and they knew a lot. They really knew a lot just by osmosis because they grew up in kind of organic Jewish communities. That was the wise generation. Not so much wicked, but the next generation was my parents who were, they were Jews, but, they wanted to be good Americans. And so, they kind of rejected the old ways of their parents because they wanted to be good Americans. And then my generation, instead, because they named me Susan, not Sarah, right? My generation was kind of curious. So we spent a lot of time with our grandparents kind of wondering, what was it that we missed growing up from our parents? And then, but, in the story, the 4th generation, doesn't even know what to ask. So the question is, have we done enough to pass on these traditions and the meaning and the teachings of these traditions? Have we done enough to pass them on so that the 4th generation, so that this is just a warning and that the next generations really do and are going to understand and are going to build on and make them even better and more meaningful? So that's part of the Magid, and of course the story of Moses, and everybody has their way of telling that wonderful story. I always tell people with little kids, Prince of Egypt, it's really good. It was really well done. And there are many, many wonderful resources. We just downloaded the URJ, a website from the URJ that has a lot of wonderful resources for little children, YouTube videos and music and things like that maybe will make the Magid, the telling of the story, interesting. And then, of course, you can't finish the story without going through the plagues. And you know what we do with the plagues? With every plague, we say the plagues, each 10 plagues, and we dip a little bit of the wine and put it, onto the plate to remember. And then you have to remind people not to lick their finger because that's the plagues, not the wine anymore. And of course, there's a lot of modern commentary on modern plagues. What are the plagues today? And I don't think we have to go too far to name what the plagues are today. And then we sing Dayenu. I wish I could unmute everybody and we would do a chorus of Dayenu, maybe with Rabbi Daniel there. But I'm not sure we want to unmute because I think that might put us at risk again for our bomber.
Here.
All right. Daniel.
And I accidentally muted Rabbi Susan. Sorry. Hold on. Let me find her on the list. We'll get better at this. Okay, they can hear you again. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I got muted because there was some noise.
Okay, I have set it so that anyone can unmute themselves. I am pretty sure that everyone is real who's on this, and I'm making everyone request permission before they join. Hopefully that will help.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that a lot. And to everyone, I'm so sorry that we had that experience, but you know what? It's so real today. And we are going to forge on, even with, the schmutz that's out there. That's the chametz today. It just doesn't belong in our lives right now. So should we, and then, after we sing Dayenu, and I always like to think Dayenu, Dayenu means even this would be enough. So even if you decide to just do a few of these steps, right? Dayenu, you can say Dayenu, even this would be enough. But I challenge everybody to take these 15 steps to freedom. We're already up to number 6. Once we have sung Dayenu, and then we drink the second cup of wine, and again, that's the cup of salvation, of not taking the people out of slavery, but taking that slavery out of us, so we can imagine a whole new paradigm, which is what the book of Exodus, which the Torah is all about, right? The Torah is about creating a world where we love the stranger, a world where we level the playing field. That's what Torah is. Torah is a response to that challenge of being free and what we do with that freedom. Number 6 is that washing of the hands before the meal. And this time there is a blessing that we say, and that's why I put a little soap on the center plate right in the center. And then, again, washing the hands this year is going to be really, really important, because washing hands is actually saving lives this year. So there's a wonderful blessing that says, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Literally, what this prayer says is, thank you, God, for teaching us to raise our hands, to lift our hands, and use them for holy service, our nice, clean hands. And then the motzi. We say the motzi, the blessing. We say the blessing over bread, which is important. We say blessing over bread. 7 and 8 are blessing over the bread, hamotzi lechem haaretz, and the blessing over the matzah. We say it over both. And, I'd love to challenge you to have the conversation. Why do you think we say it both? I think I'll leave you with that question. Why do we say blessing both? I have a little kavanah there. And if we say a blessing, you break off a piece of the matzah and you eat it. That's the first thing that you do. So what is matzah? Let me say a word about the matzah. Matzah is chametz in arrested development, right? What is matzah? Matzah is the bread with no ego. So first we eat it alone. And then we eat it with step number 9, the maror. We take a little of the bitter herbs. I have a little horseradish here. I'm waiting for my horseradish root. I have just plain horseradish from the refrigerator here. It's nice to have a horseradish root. Did you know that there is a town in Illinois, I used to know the name of it, that is the horseradish capital of, I think, the world. Does anybody else know that? We get our horseradish from there usually every year. I don't think we'll get it this year, but hopefully we'll get it. And so we put a little of the horseradish on matzah. That's number 9. We say the blessing. You have to eat a quantity of more as big as an olive, because to say a blessing, it has to be as big as an olive. But that's the tradition.
Rabbi Susan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your sound is cutting in and out a little bit. I think maybe your Wi-Fi is not cooperating with you.
Something I need to do about that. I don't know how to fix that. Unless
Actually,
I make it closer.
Seem to just fix.
Did it fix? Okay. So that's step number 9, is having the matzah with the maror on it, the bitter herbs. Step number 10 is combining the matzah, the charosis, and the bitter herbs. We put them all together. Now, it's kind of interesting. You remember being a kid and being told that charosis was the mortar that was used to make the pyramids? So why did we make it so sweet? You'd think that would be bitter too, but no. I guess finding sweetness even in those terrible moments. If you think about people in the Holocaust who actually made holy moments. We think about this time where we're trying to do what we can to help people who are on the front lines and also people who are so vulnerable. So even in these difficult times, we are trying to find the sweetness. And Kairos can be anything as simple as the Sephardic version that's just raisins, pulverized raisins with a little bit of grape juice and or wine, all the way to, the Ashkenazi Kairos that's apples and nuts, and all kinds of apples and nuts and walnuts, and wine, grape juice and cinnamon and all kinds of things, to another Persian version that has dates and other kinds of kind of Middle Eastern fruit, figs, dates, apricots, raisins all together, and you can even put almonds in there. But Kairos is it depends on what part of the world you're coming from, right? And so that's number 10. We're at this, and then we eat the meal. And then that's 11, and then 12 is we send the children to find the afikomen and bargain back to be able to have dessert. And maybe we'll find ways, creative ways. There are, I think, online searches for the afikomen. And then when they find it,
we're gonna have a hidden afikomen link on the CRC website somewhere, and
great.
whoever finds it first will get, I don't know, some sort of something. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's terrific. So remember that. So as old as we are, we can all participate in finding the afikomen this year.
And as long as you're looking on the
great.
website,
Thank you,
I
Daniel.
have hidden a Rickroll in someone's bio, just as a heads up while you're looking.
You have what? Hidden?
Don't worry.
I don't think Rabbi Susan knows what a Rickroll is.
I don't.
Okay. There's this song by a guy named Rick Astley from the 80s called Never Gonna Give You Up, I think is the name of it. And a Rickroll is when you hide a link to that song somewhere.
Oh, that's great.
It's a nice song, but people make fun of it.
I love that. Well, we're almost through because we're on number 12. And don't forget to open the door for Elijah. We can't invite anybody else in, but certainly we can invite Elijah. So we have the cup of Elijah. We always use this cup that has a beautiful bird in the bottom. Kids always love to, when they could see the bird, and then they could see the bird because Elijah came, drank from the cup. But we also have the cup of Miriam. This is a new thing like the orange that remembers the water that Miriam brought, that we had to cross through at the sea, but also the water of the well of Miriam that would quench our thirst spiritually and physically as we went through the wilderness. And I've been finding that water is just so important right now, just to keep us clean and keep us sustained. So that the preciousness of water is also celebrated at that time. And Elijah hopefully will visit all of us. We can't have anybody else come, but Elijah can still come. And
be sure to put out a mask for him and by the door in case he comes. Put a mask by the door for him in case he comes to your house.
Put a mask by the door. I love that. And a little bit of gloves, because he's been traveling.
That was Pam's idea.
A little like Santa Claus. I love that. Great
idea.
Right. So we then say the blessing over the fourth and final cup of wine, that cup that is about faith. And then we bless a meal, we do the Birkat Hamazon if that's your custom, or just give thanks that we got through it. That's 13. 14 is the Hallel, which is just, again, praising, being grateful. I think one of the things that is one of the strategies of staying healthy during this time is to count our blessings. There's a lot of things that we're disappointed that we can't do. There's a lot of things that we can't have, but there's always something to be grateful for. And that's 14. And 15, the last step, is when we say, for whatever it means, next year in Jerusalem. Next year, may we be through this terrible pandemic across the world that doesn't know borders, that doesn't know race, that doesn't know faith, that's affecting everybody. And next year, may we be free and safe and healthy and still here. One of the things that we always do at our Seder table is, my kids always roll their eyes, but we do it anyway. As we go around and we say, before we end, we say, what is it that you hope will come to be this time next year? And we did this about 30 years ago. And I'll never forget, Rabbi Jacobs was at our table, and a young man named Dwayne Perrier who had AIDS, and he was dying from AIDS. And he said, I want you to remember me next year. And so every year we say the name of Dwayne Perrier, and his parents know that. And I think they're always grateful. And we try to remember him. And so I think that that might be a good thing for us to do this year before we end, is say what we hope will come to be before we, God willing, next year are able to open our homes, open our lives, and be together and have our big Seders and with all the people that we love. What do we hope will happen between this year and then? And then on our document, we have one more thing, and that is to remember, even after all these steps, that really the only requirement is to remember, as I said before, the Pesach. And we don't put a shank bone on our, we put, this is the fake one from my grandsons, because I didn't have a beet yet from my grandson's kitchen, but you can use a beet instead of a shank bone. That's in the Talmud, actually, because it bleeds, I guess. And so to explain the Pesach and the idea of Pesach, it's not only the sacrifice that we all have to make, and we certainly are making sacrifices this year, but also Pesach means to jump, to leap. And it is time for us to jump into the story, to really be present, more present than we've ever been, maybe, is being required of us, even across the internet. We've got to be present for each other. The matzah, we have to explain, and again, it's the bread with no ego. Why do we eat the matzah? Well, maybe because when we left Egypt, we didn't want to become like Pharaoh, and so we had to eat this bread, this flat bread with no ego, so that we wouldn't become what we left, so that we would learn, we would remember the lessons of slavery and what it felt like, so we would never do to others what was done to us. And finally, the maror. We have to explain the maror. Why? Because we have to remember the bitterness of certain times so that we can really appreciate when things are sweet. So I'm going to ask Rabbi Daniel to talk about what are all the wonderful ways that we can reach across the internet to find each other. And Daniel, are you still here?
I'm here.
Oh, good.
Hi, everyone. I just want to take a moment to maybe exhale. I don't know if everyone else's heart is still going a billion beats a minute, and just the awfulness of that and the awfulness of that kind of hate. So I'm going to take us through some of the resources that we're putting together, but I think before we do that, I just want to share a couple Passover texts that I think speak to Passover, but maybe also speak to literally this moment we're in right now, as in living through that awfulness of those people who joined us on Zoom. Is there someone who wouldn't mind unmuting themselves and reading so we hear some other voices other than mine? Whomever, just go for it and unmute yourself. I'm going to ask you to start with Primo Levi.
Primo Levi, survival at Auschwitz, 43 or 44. Driven by thirst, I find icicle outside the window within hand's reach. I opened the window and broke off the icicle, but at once a large, heavy guard prowling outside brutally snatched it away from me. Warum? I asked him in my poor German. Here is kind, Warum. Here's no place to ask why, he said, pushing me inside with a shove. Question, or is that stop?
No. Yeah, pause there for a minute. Right. So if people are, who's familiar, let me turn off the screen share so we can all see each other too. There we go. There we go. Is anyone familiar with Primo Levi? Is this a name that means anything? He's often or sometimes paired with, oh, my brain is just going blank, wrote Knight, Elie Wiesel, as sort of two of the twin people who wrote some of the really important literature after the Holocaust, Jewish literature. As a general rule, Primo's literature tends to be less forgiving, just as sort of a general kind of understanding here. What do we think of this text? What do we take away from this piece right here? This sticks with me every year during Passover.
One thing, that's interesting is, like, who are you to ask why when the whole Passover thing, it's all about questioning and asking and, so it's such the paradox opposite.
Yeah. I have a beloved teacher, Noam Sion, who was supposed to come and teach all of us actually about Passover until no one could travel anymore. He was coming from Israel. He likes to say that the thing we get confused with Passover is we think it's about questions when really it's about deep problematics. That the point of Passover is we do things out of order because it's supposed to teach us to question why is it that we do things in the order that we think of as normal in the first place. Or to say it all differently, the point of Passover is education towards questioning. That it's supposed to teach us that the world is not what it's supposed to be, and we're supposed to move past and learn to move past thinking that the world that we have inherited, the world as it is, has any relationship at all to the world that we should be creating. And that's really one of the real goals of Passover. So I always share this text with a partner. So will someone else read that next one by Rabbi Steve Greenberg? Does anyone know that name, who he is? Anyone want to share something about him?
For my studies, he's an incredible rabbi who's talked a lot about being a gay man and still being devout and being Jewish, and how the two can go together. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be in conflict, that they can be a part of who you are. Nice.
He's the first openly gay man to have been ordained, I'm probably saying this in the wrong order, ordained by Yeshiva University, because of course he was not ordained by Yeshiva University before he came out. He came out afterwards. They most likely would not have ordained him. He wrote a really incredible book, Wrestling with God and Man, I think it is what it's called. He was also in the movie, the documentary, I don't know if anyone remembers it, it was a while ago now, I bet it's kind of dated now, Trembling Before God, which looked at the experience of the LGBTQ community in the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox worlds. Okay, will someone read this text?
The key to Jewish exegesis is to assume that nothing is obvious. Questions are the great cultural paradox. They both destabilize and secure social norms. Questions tend to democratize. Ease with questions conveys a fundamental trust in the goodwill and the good sense of others. Autocrats hate questions. We train children at the Passover Seder to ask why, because tyrants are undone and liberty is won with a good question. Khrushchev once explained why he hated Jews. He said, "They always ask why. It is for this reason that God loves it when we ask why." Consequently, we celebrate challenging the Torah to make sense, and above all, to be a defensible expression of divine goodness. When we ask good questions, the Torah is given anew on Sinai at that very moment.
So I love these texts. I'll confess, there's a whole sheet of text above these that were actually the ones I was planning on having us look at today, but I don't know. These kind of felt like the appropriate response to me, to those people who joined us.
Right.
Right? Like the obligation of Passover is to teach us to ask better questions. And the fundamental rule, at least as Rabbi Greenberg is stating it here, like the thing about being Jewish is to ask the sorts of questions that undermine hate, that undermine autocracy,
Right.
and that promote freedom. Okay, any thoughts, any questions on those, any responses before I take us through some of the resources we put together?
Daniel, I would like to say I loved your comment that the fundamental purpose is to teach us that the world is not the way it's supposed to be. That is just beautiful,
Yeah.
because of course we all know that, and we all struggle against it. And that's our whole point, is to struggle against it.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay. Oh, and I just love the text. We'll do one more text. I'm sorry. I just love this one too much. Uprooting the table. So this year, I think it's actually going to be kind of easier. No one's going to be doing Passover the way that everyone normally does Passover this year, right? Like basically no one in the world. But I have a real thing that I think we do Passover wrong. I think the whole point of Passover is the whole point of the Seder, of doing this night differently, is that it's supposed to be radically different so that we question why we do things in the order that we do them in. And instead, what we've often done is created a liturgy that is Passover that we do exactly the same every year. So the irony of it, of course, is that oftentimes there's very little unexpected about the Seder, when I really think that the core value of the Seder is to do things in an unexpected way. Did that make sense what I just said? Was that too many okay, so there's this great text from the Talmud about Abaye and Rabbah. And just a little bit of background on the two of them as personalities. Rabbah is Abaye's uncle. And Abaye is orphaned as a child, loses both of his parents. And Rabbah takes him in and gives him this new name. I don't even know what his name was. I think it says somewhere in the Talmud, but I've totally forgotten, because he's always called Abaye. His name, right? Like if you know Hebrew, Abba is dad. And there's all these explanations in the Talmud for why he gets this name, but I'm totally convinced that the aye at the end is like a diminutive, like a little loving, like the way we put an I at the end of a word, or an ly or something, right, to make it diminutive and loving. And I totally I think Rabbah calls him Abaye because it's like, I see your dad in you, little one. So anyways, that's not really about this text, but I love that dynamic there. Will someone read this for us, Uprooting the Table?
Why do we uproot the table?
Okay, pause for a second. So it used to be a custom, and maybe still is a custom in some places, that one of the ways of making Passover feel different is that you would start by serving the dinner. Like you would have it all on the table, laid out, dinner ready to go. Everyone would sit down, and just before they would dig in, you would move everything out and get rid of it. We still have a remnant of this. Like at the beginning, the first hand washing, it does a whole thing about how you wash your hands. And in any traditional Haggadah, it says, but you don't say the blessing. We miss this because most of us, at least in the liberal Jewish world, don't have this tradition of washing our hands before we eat. Well, hopefully we wash our hands before we eat. We don't wash our hands ritually and say a blessing before we eat. And so the whole idea is they set it up that there will be a hand washing and then you don't eat, meaning things aren't going in the way that you expect them to go. Okay, keep going, Sarah.
Debay Yana says, so that the little children will notice and ask.
Okay, and here comes the real story.
Once, as an orphan child, Abaye sat before Rabbah, his teacher at the Seder. He saw him remove or uproot the table before him. Abaye said, "But we haven't eaten yet, so why remove the table?" Rabbah replied, "You have now exempted us from reciting Manishta." Manishta?
Manishtana, the 4 questions, the beginning of the 4 questions. Right, like you see it in the English and or the transliteration, and you totally lose it, right? So I love this text because is there anything more like rooted in the Seder than the 4 questions, right? The youngest at the table and all these other traditions that people have with the Seder. And yet what we've done is we've turned it into a liturgy. In this piece that is the like paradigmatic example of what the Seder should be, Rabbah is saying, you're doing it wrong if you think that like the point is to read every line of every Hebrew thing. Have people been to Seders like that? I certainly have, where like every single page, and right? Like you're doing it wrong if you do it that way. The whole point is to be learning to ask these deep questions. So I think that's actually going to be easier for us this year. Probably none of us are going to be doing this in these standard ways.
Daniel?
Yeah.
May I make a comment? Of course, you have to learn that that's the way to do it in order not to do it.
Yes, the great irony of it all. Yeah,
If you didn't learn it, then you wouldn't know that you weren't doing it.
totally.
It's like Picasso had to learn, right, from the masters before he could paint like a child, right?
So there's parts in the Seder liturgy where you raise the glass of wine, but then you don't drink it. Is that part of uprooting the table?
Oh, that's good. Like the second
thought of that.
cup. Right, the
never thought of
second
that. I
cup,
like
you don't drink it. You know, the other thing is, I think you've explained all these years, I've never known why that Sephardic custom of hiding your eyes in that first washing. I think it's to not see the food go away. I think that's probably where it comes from.
I love it.
There's a commentary, you know, the an old Sephardic commentary that has that custom in there, but nobody could ever tell us why. I think maybe that's why.
Love it.
No,
Any other thoughts on this, or sort of I just wanted to do this to set some values and really to help us exhale, hopefully, from that awfulness. Any other thoughts on this before I just take us through some of the resources we're putting together?
Well, just that, you know, kind of in that line, you know, for those people who are going to Zoom their Seders with people that they can't be physically with, give them some homework, you know, send out parts and ask them to put their questions in and, you know, put everybody to work this year, you know, and maybe that'll uproot the table a little bit.
Can I ask you what you did to come back in and make certain people that were Zoom bombing? Because now I'm worried during our Seder whether or not that'll happen. So if you can help me to know how to prevent that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it sounds like that's probably necessary understanding for particularly Jewish groups right now. So what I did was I went ahead and turned on a waiting room. So anyone who wants to join, some of you may have, those who were in early, got in early, but everyone else would have gotten something that said you're in the waiting room. And then I let people in one by one. There were 2 people you may have noticed who still got through because I was being a little too, I don't know. I mean, it's awful because then, you know, you don't know who's real and who's not and all these sorts of things. I would think it would be much less of an issue for a private Seder, because really what I think is happening is we paste the link to the Zoom on our Facebook posts that are going live. There are, I don't know, 20 people, 25 people right now who are watching this on Facebook and are not a part of the Zoom meeting. And there's a link at the top so that they can join the Zoom meeting. And I'm assuming that's how they got in. So I did that. I also made it so no one but me can share their screen. I initially set it so people can't unmute themselves, and we'll figure out more things to do. But I would think you'd be safer in your own private Zoom meeting. Yeah, Helen.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you can also, if you create the meeting, you can have it be password protected. So that's just another layer of, so only the people that you invite can enter.
Yep. Yep. Okay, let's go through some of the resources we're putting together, or we have put together. So everything that is an online resource for us these days, whether it's for Passover or not, is based on the website. So all of our Zoom links, I don't know if that's how people joined or if they joined through the email that went out. So this is our new front page of the website. I got rid of the old front page yesterday and just have our online community page as our front page because this is the only stuff that's really happening. And today created this little Passover section right here. I don't know if that's how anyone got into the meeting today. There was a link there. So here are the things that we're doing. You obviously know about the program we're in right now. What Susan mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be doing a virtual Seder, kind of like we did the Shabbat Kulanu. So everyone's sending in their parts to me, and I'm creating a little movie of it that we'll upload in a live stream at 6 o'clock on the first night of Seder. And that will be a link that will take you there. You'll notice that's Michelle Obama lighting the candles at the Passover Seder in the White House. We're doing a women's Seder, which is one of the regular Seders. For those who have been around CRC a lot, we do a lot of Seders. Normally, it's really one of the beautiful things that we do. But this year, the one alternative Seder that we're going to have is the women's Seder. That'll be linked here. Just click on it to join. Rabbi Susan and Rabbi Jim are going to be doing an online Yizkor, which is a traditional remembrance service for those who have lost someone, those who in particular who may have lost someone in the last year, or someone close to them, or anyone who's just feeling it particularly. So, and I'm looking right now and see that I didn't put the time and date on there, but I will edit that after this. There's also going to be a second night Seder with Rabbi Susan and Rabbi Jim that they are going to be not live streaming, they'll be Zooming for anyone who wants to join in a Zoom Seder. And we will make sure that there are some sort of controls to make sure that that does not go awry as today did. And then the last thing is, and I apologize, I'm going to sit down when I have time and make this look less ugly than it does here. Just some resources that we're putting together for people. You clicked on that link and it'll bring you to this. And if you have other resources you think we should include, please let me know. All sorts of different things. Noam Sion, the scholar who I mentioned before, who was supposed to come, he's written a number of Haggadahs, including the family participation Haggadah, which I love, and he's giving it away for free this year. So you can get that as a PDF or a Word file or whatever at his site there. All sorts of other different projects. The URJ, the Union for Reform Judaism, has a ton of stuff they put together. AJWS and Trua, where did Trua go? Right up here. Have really social justice focused stuff for Seders. In our own Seder, we use their content quite a bit to bring some contemporary meaning to it. We have, let's see, this one right here, collection of resources from Rabbi Simone Schicker. I highly recommend. That's so funny. I don't know if other people are seeing that pop up right there. She just mentioned me in something. She put together really an incredible collection of stuff, and it's ever expanding. So I invite you to click through that. And I think that's what we've got. Are there any questions? Are there any ways that we can be helpful? Because that's the other resource that we've really got, is we've got 5 rabbis at CRC, all of whom are more than happy to help whomever with whatever. So other questions? Yes, Steve.
Can we get a copy of those quotations you had us read from?
Oh yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll just drop it. I'll drop a link there.
That would be great.
I'll put it right in that resources, and it's a whole, yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure if it's on there, but I did, there is a document that went along with the 18 steps that I just did. And each one I didn't go into, but each one has a kavanah with a question in it, with guiding questions. And Daniel, I don't know if that's available.
It's not there yet, but I'll put it in that same spreadsheet that's online that will always be up to date. So I'll drop it there. I'll drop the text study I did, all that kind of stuff.
Daniel?
Yeah.
How do we get that Haggadah? It was the top one on the list?
It was the top one. Click on the link and it's right there. You'll see it.
Okay, you can just print it out?
You can just print it out, and gosh, it's too bad that we can't be in person at all, because in preparation for his class, they shipped us like 3 enormous boxes filled with his Haggadot that are sitting in my office at CRC.
Maybe we could pick them up some way? Or
If you wanted to figure out a way to make that happen, just be in touch with me personally and we can see if there's a safe way to do that.
Thank you.
You got to unmute yourself, Sarah.
I've told several people from different parts of the country about joining. Now that we've experienced this, whatever you call it, Zoom boom, how do they do that? What's a safe way to join, I guess?
We've already put in place some protocols. At the beginning, when Rabbi Susan was teaching, I went through and changed all sorts of settings and have changed all the settings as default for our accounts, and have emailed the whole staff, and we'll hopefully be able to prevent that from happening again.
And thank you for organizing, thank you, both of you. You're really organizing all the tech part. So thank you, Rabbi Daniel. Thank you, Rabbi Susan.
Any other last thoughts, last questions, last ideas?
Just as a warning, my husband this afternoon, just before this started, said that he had read that Zoom doesn't have any of the protections in it. And so if you're on a Zoom meeting, don't click on any links that anybody seems to be sharing, because it's not secure. So they have to work on that. But it's kind of scary now that we're all dependent on Zoom. And then 20 minutes later, this happened to us.
Yep. Yeah.
I have a question. I've given, like, I had somebody watching the Shabbat service last week with me, and he's from another state. Do I need to give you his name or anything in case he wants to join these things?
Sorry, I keep muting myself because my dog is barking at the door at something.
Yeah.
What is he thinking of joining?
I know he likes like the Shabbat services and stuff, but I thought he might be able to see
all the streaming stuff. He can just join. We don't need, that's not on Zoom. Yeah, it's only Torah study, the classes that we've been doing. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll start figuring this out. We'll come up with
I'll ask him if he wants to. I'll tell him, we got to talk more about that. Okay. But he can get into the Shabbat services and whatnot. That's okay. All right, thanks.
Daniel, off the topic, are we doing the live streaming again tomorrow night at 7:30 for Shabbat service?
6 o'clock. Yeah.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, all Shabbat. So the new times for people to know: 6 o'clock for Friday night services. At Shabbat morning, Torah study is 9 to 10. Family service is 10 to 10:30, and regular services are 10:30 to 11:30. And this week, I think Karen and I are doing Friday night and family service. Rabbi Dale's doing Torah study, and Rabbis Susan and Jim are doing Shabbat morning.
Which Haggadah were you recommending? Because I'm looking at the listing of them.
Rabbi Susan's, I'm going to put that on there in a minute. The 18 steps is really a Haggadah, right? I mean, it's for people to use.
It's really simple.
Yeah.
It leaves a lot of room for your creativity, your own stories. And, you can download it, and then you can add to it. You can create your own by, just cutting and pasting. The other thing is, I noticed on the URJ website, there is a make your own Haggadah link. So you can, kind of create your own. But some of the other ones are really good. In fact, last year I took the confirmation class to the American Jewish World Service. Each kid got one of their Haggadot, and I know Amy Gage's family used the American Jewish World Service Haggadah for their Seder and loved it. And all of those are, I think, on Daniel's list, and you can download any of them and look at them and see what you think, or you can kind of pick and choose what you like.
Okay, thanks.
Together.
So maybe we'll end with one last reflection here, and then I'd like Rabbi Susan's idea of something we're feeling grateful for. Will someone read, speaking, we've mentioned Noam Sion a number of times. Someone want to read that very top question or the top quote here? I love this.
The values of the Seder, Noam Sion. The capacity to conceive of a world in which I see myself as if I left Egypt. Going from enslavement to freedom gives me a special perspective on society and allows me to criticize the current social order to which I am enslaved. The Jew who lives successively in the world of Pharaoh, Ahasuerus, the Romans and the Nazis, all in accordance with the holiday being observed, Passover, Purim, Tisha B'Av, or Holocaust Day, has untold possibilities for comparison. The Jew can query the existent situation and discover the logic behind it, and then choose his or her way in life. Three elements converge on Seder night: the commandment to recount the story of the Exodus from Egypt, the commandment to pose questions about the existent order, and the goal of education towards freedom.
Love these three final pieces, right? As a summary of the goals of Passover: the commandment to tell the story, to pose questions about the existent order, and the goal of education towards freedom. I particularly love that phrasing at the end, right? Education towards freedom. So Rabbi Susan, you want to take us through gratitude?
Sure. You know, we wake up in the morning, and interesting. What's the first thing we do as Jews is we wash our hands. I think that's becoming even more relevant today. But then the second thing we do is modeh or moda'ani. Thank you, God, for returning my soul to me that I may serve you one more day. So the very first breath we take in the morning, the wisdom is that we say what we're grateful for. So before we get to our seders, before we begin the cleaning and of the shitting ourselves of the chametz, the puffed up stuff that doesn't belong in our lives right now, and maybe, you know, in our lives right now, not just because of Passover, but because of this pandemic, maybe it would be good to just say one thing that we're grateful for, because maybe by you finding something as difficult as this time may be, and you know, I spent last night with a woman who was in the hospital, virtually, of course. I spent the morning hearing about a family that we're helping actually with our Instacart food, a grandfather who took in his granddaughter because her father was molesting her. So, you know, there's a lot of pain out there. There's a lot of heartache. There's a lot of schmutz. But, you know, maybe by sharing what we are grateful for, the beauty in our own lives, just maybe will inspire something better, something bigger, and a whole new paradigm, which is what Passover is about. You know, it's about uprooting the table. It's about changing the paradigm. It's about leaving an Egypt where we were stuck as slaves and getting out and being humble enough to find a whole new way, right? That's what we say about Pharaoh. You know, Moses went to Pharaoh and didn't say, give me a nice after school program for the slaves' children. Get me out of here, because I want to create something new, something where this doesn't happen again, and where everybody has what they need and everybody is free. So I'll start, and maybe we'll just keep going through the line here. I'm grateful that I belong to a community that is so thoughtful and so intentional. And through the mitzvah corps and through all the things that we're doing, is caring not only for ourselves, but for others as well. Sarah, I see you next in my screen.
Okay. As crazy as this time has been, oh, I've got to unmute. No, this has actually been a very good time for me in so many ways. So no work, but I've had time to do stuff that I've been putting off for such a long time. So
Gratitude for
this is,
time.
so I'm grateful for that. Grateful for time.
Hey, I don't know if you can hear me. This is Marilyn,
Marilyn.
and I'm delighted to have been part of this, helping me to understand more deeply what it's all about and the nuances. And to tell you that I have horseradish root.
From Collinsville. I remember it's Collinsville, right?
No, I have it in my backyard. I have
Oh,
it.
you're growing it.
I'm growing it and growing it. I have plenty of it. I just don't know how to get it to people.
That's
I'm
amazing.
serious. Where can be the distribution center?
Hmm.
You know how to
Well,
find me. Let me know.
You have a front porch. Maybe you could put some on a front porch. People could pick it up.
I could. 3822 Russell.
Thank you.
Come in off 39th Street. I'll have it in a pink bowl with some water to keep it. It's kind of woody, but you get the idea.
Beautiful.
Oh, nice.
Sharon?
Oh, I'm grateful that for the garden and for those daffodils. My goodness, do they give cheer, and especially this year, like an antidote to what's going on.
Well, I'm grateful that my granddaughter yesterday gave birth to my first great granddaughter.
Yay!
That's terrific.
Do we have a name?
She's doing great. Her name is Violet. Violet Beverly.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Daniel, maybe you can see people. I can't see any more people.
I'm grateful for having these meetings online because I can attend them even when I can't normally attend them. And so it brings me a really nice sense of peace that I crave when the world is back to its quote unquote normal.
And we're not going to go back to not having these things available to people who can't make it in person. We're already looking at installing a permanent system inside of the library so that all of our adult ed classes can just sort of natively also have this kind of component, because it means so much to people who can't make it.
I have been so grateful for Rabbi Dan. I think we needed his youthful touch with technology that has connected us and has brought such a world of meaning to me. I don't think he's working part-time anymore.
Thank you.
I called him the bot Cole when he comes in during a class to navigate whatever we need to do. It's just amazing. Thank you, Dan.
Oh my. Well, I'm grateful for everyone at CRC and for all my friends online that are busy putting on pictures of beautiful things that they've seen in nature to try to keep everybody's spirits up. And I'm tickled to death that we're all being forced how to learn Zoom and Skype.
Anyone else want to share?
I will. I'm really grateful for community. I've just recently, right before all of this happened with the COVID and everything, started, oh, my camera's slipping, attending, and I'm just so grateful that I've gotten to be a part of this community. It's brought a lot to my life, so thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm Rich Hibbs. I don't know if you can see me or not. Can you see me?
Can't see you, but
We can
it's
hear you.
good to hear your
Okay.
voice, Rich.
Okay, well, I'm grateful for both of you rabbis on putting this program together, and for fact that we have this technology that allows us to have virtual meetings with each other and to keep in contact with our friends and family. And I'm particularly grateful for a walking group that I have, and we go out and walk every day for an hour. And that's been a real relief for me.
Anyone else? I think, did we lose Daniel?
Susan, it said you were the host now.
Oh,
Sharon, if you want to say something, because I saw you were talking, you need to go down in the corner and unmute yourself.
I don't think I'm muted.
No, you're not muted.
No, I don't want to, I already said something.
Yeah.
But I do, well, I guess I want to thank you for coming back, because that Zoom bombing was so disorienting and so awful, and I'm grateful that you came back and that we were able to talk later. It was.
Thank you for coming back, because it was very disturbing. Yeah. But
Yeah,
thanks
sure.
for coming back. Hopefully we've redeemed ourselves.
If it's really upsetting, there is a tutorial on YouTube.
Okay.
Or on the help page for Zoom, and that will show you all the tools that are available to protect yourself.
Thank you, Steve. I'll go read it.
Okay, and actually I was talking about Sharon Miller because she was talking and didn't unmute herself, but that's okay.
All right.
Well, I have to head out and make dinner. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us, and have a wonderful Seder.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, well, I think we're ready to wrap up, but I hope everybody has a wonderful experience, and if you have any questions, give us there's Daniel, he's back. Give us a call. We're always
Ran out of batteries.
okay. All right. Well, lots of love, everybody, and thanks for hanging in there with us.
Peace.